Hello and welcome to Pastoral Care Field Education. Hopefully by this stage you will have received a copy of your Pastoral Field Education Manual. If you haven't, they are available from the front office, or alternatively you will find the full transcript of this Field Education Manual is available on the Moodle site for download. I strongly encourage you to take the time to read through the whole of the manual carefully. I know it will take you some time, but it will be important to make sure that you have a clear understanding of what is involved in this subject. There are certain parts of that manual which will also be of particular interest to your ministry mentor, and so I encourage you to pass on some of that information to your ministry mentor as well. One of the first questions that many students ask when embarking upon their field education is what kind of time responsibilities are involved in this subject. Whereas most units of studied here at Malyon reckon on around about 10 hours per week, in field education we're looking for a commitment of about 15 hours per week. You'll see there from the slide on the screen that for contact students this is made up of 1 hour of face-to-face lecture time per week, during which time we will discuss a whole range of issues that pertain to the practical exercise of ministry, particularly in the pastoral context. Then there will also be time spent each week with your ministry mentor, around about an hour per week for that mentoring time, or alternatively, if your ministry mentor would rather do it on a fortnightly basis, it would then be around about 2 hours per fortnight. Then you'll see that there is allocated about 10 hours per week to your ministry experiences, and we'll talk more about these in a few moments' time. But your ministry experiences are the experiences that you will gain in the field, as it were, in the ministry placement, which will probably be your home church. And then there's about 3 hours a week which is allocated to being able to reflect upon your ministry experience, and then also the writing of the various reports, and again we'll speak further about those in a few moments. You will notice also there that for the distance students, in place of the 1 hour of contact time with lectures, you're expected to spend about 1 hour per week reviewing the lecture material, which will be available online. Very often you will find that there's not only lecture notes, but there'll be PowerPoints there, which will help you get a clearer understanding of what's being presented in the lectures, and very often there'll also be some other resources and some video material to look at as well. But apart from that, the rest of the responsibilities are exactly the same as they are set out there for the contact students. When it comes to our field education program, you're probably aware that we look to developing a learning team. This was covered actually in your FE001 Intro to Field Ed unit. But as you'll see there, at the centre of this whole process is you, the student. And we have sought to set around you a number of groups and individuals who are able to provide valuable input and also become the source of some valuable reflection for you in your journey. And so you'll see that there is input there from Malyon College, from the Field Education Department. There will be some input clearly from your ministry mentor, who will also encourage you to reflect carefully upon your own personal growth and development. And then there will be your ministry support team, or the MST as we often call it. And this particular group will be a small group of people from your local church ministry setting, usually around about 4 or at the most 5 people, who will meet with you 3 times throughout the semester and help you in this process of reflecting upon your journey. In terms of the assessment requirement, can I simply point out to you that students are expected to attend all lectures and to meet for at least 1 hour per week or 2 hours per fortnight with their ministry mentor. That of course is for the in-class students. For the distance students, you are expected of course to spend that 1 hour a week covering all of the lecture material yourself. In addition to that, there is the operation of the ministry support team. The ministry support team should meet, as I mentioned, at least 3 times each semester, and at the end of the semester they will be asked to provide a report on the report form that is made available for you under heading number 14 in this particular module on the Moodle site. And then of course there is your engagement in a selection of ministry experiences of which there ought to be 6 in this first semester. When it comes to your assessment, as I mentioned, there will be a range of ministry experiences that you are to be involved in, and on page 6 of your field education manual you'll find a full listing of the 30 possible ministry experiences that you would be engaged in. We're asking that you look to cover at least 3 of those provided on the list on the screen here, and you'll find that these are all areas that will be covered in the lectures throughout the semester. Throughout the semester, your assessment will take place through the format of your written reports, but there's a number of submission dates for these reports to begin to come in. The first will be on the 24th of February, where you'll supply your semester planner, and we will talk further about that in just a few moments, and also the evidence of your ministry planning. The evidence of your ministry planning essentially involves the submission of a copy of a sample weekly diary planner, and you can find a copy of a planner pro forma there under heading 14 on the Moodle site, and you'll simply fill that in, looking for you to be able to clearly set out how you plan on a regular basis to invest your time, the time that you'll spend in study, the time you'll spend involved in your ministry experiences, for many of you perhaps the time that you'll also spend with family, time for recreation, and for numbers of you I'm sure there'll also be the time that you need to set aside for other ministry or work related issues for your life. So we want to see that you've planned well for these things. The second submission is on the 22nd of March, and on that date you'll provide one ministry experience report, and you'll see it's designated there as form FE4, and you'll find those again under heading 14 on the Moodle site. Then you'll also be the submission of 2 ministry observation reports. These are slightly different to the ministry experience reports because in this case you are simply reporting on a ministry that you have observed, not necessarily one that you've participated in, but one that you've observed. This of course may include such things as the observation of your pastor conducting a funeral, or perhaps leading in a pre-marriage counselling session, but you're expected to look for 2 situations in ministry where you're not necessarily personally involved, but you can learn a great deal by simply observing and carefully reflecting on what is happening. The third submission date will be on the 3rd of May, and that will require 3 more ministry experience reports, and then your final submissions due on the 2nd of June will be your last 2 ministry experience reports, together with your student evaluation report, which is form FE5, and this is a more global reflection on the whole of the semester and the things that you have learnt and grown in throughout the semester. Then there's also a report to be submitted by your ministry support team, and then your ministry mentors evaluation report, and the pro formas for all of those are available online there. Can I also just make a quick word for our distance students, those who are studying online, a reminder that there are weekly forums to be completed, and you are expected to complete these each week. Don't leave them for a few weeks before you get onto them. Every week you're required to complete your online forum, and I will be responding to those on a weekly basis. When you start in your ministry placement, the first thing that you'll need to do is to work out with your ministry mentor the names of the people that you might approach to become part of your ministry support team. Once you've established your ministry support team, you'll get those people to come together, and at your first meeting I strongly encourage you to sit down and show them this YouTube presentation that I've prepared, which is basically a welcome and an introduction to the ministry support team. It'll help them to have a clear idea of what is required, and indeed it will help you as well to have a clear idea of what is expected of the ministry support team. When it comes to the selection of your ministry experience reports, you will find on page 6 of your field education manual a listing of the 30 possible ministry experience reports that you will be engaged in. Of course, in each semester that you do field education, you're looking to be involved in 6 ministry experiences. And so, for example, in negotiation with your ministry mentor, you might decide in semester 1 that you're going to look at pastoral care, which is designated as C1. You might also decide that you'll look at evangelism, M2, because there are certain things that are happening in the life of the church at that time which would provide a wonderful opportunity. You might decide that you're going to look at W4, which is baptisms, because there are a number of baptisms coming up and your ministry mentor would love to have you involved in the preparation and perhaps even the baptism of some of those candidates. Once these 6 ministry experiences have been settled upon, you can then begin to complete your semester planner. Now, your semester planner, form FE1, looks something like that, and you can see that I've filled in red just an indication of the sort of things that we require. Your name, your ministry mentor's name, your church location, the subject, which in this case is PC 443, or for some of you it might be PC 643. You need to indicate when you are planning to meet with your ministry mentor, whether weekly or fortnightly, the day of the week, the time and the location. You'll also see down there a notice about Blue Card, and it's an ACT requirement that everyone doing field education must have a current positive Blue Card notice. And so we're asking you to fill in the Blue Card reference number and then also to provide for us a copy, whether that's a photocopy or a scan of that. On the reverse side of this form, you'll then see the place where you can fill in the 6 ministry experiences that you will be engaged in throughout the semester. In addition to that, we're asking you to try and allocate the amount of time that you think that you will probably be spending on each of these ministry experiences. Now, of course, this is in some senses a bit of a guess, but we're asking you to try and make sure that you've apportioned your time well. As you'll see in this case, there are some ministry experiences that perhaps will not take a lot of time. For example, communion may only take a couple of hours, both in terms of your preparation for the communion and then your conducting of a communion service. Other things may in fact take considerably longer. For example, in evangelism, I've put down that this person may be going to spend 26 hours in evangelism because they're going to be very much involved in the leading and sharing in the church's market outreach. And of course, this is just a sample. At the end of that, of course, you'll need to sign your name. You can do that electronically, and the name of your ministry mentor, and then when it's sent in to me, I will also sign it and keep that as a record, which ACT actually require. When it comes to the grading of your field education, you will find there that the grading is primarily drawn from the reports that you provide. In fact, the grades are essentially marked on the work that you send in your ministry observation reports and also your ministry experience reports and then your student evaluation report. And the way in which we break up the grading of each of those reports is that approximately 34% of the grading is allocated to the descriptive elements of the report, while 66% is allocated to the reflective elements. The reflective elements, and we will talk more about this in module number 2, are focused primarily on your practical reflection or situational reflection, what's happened in the particular ministry setting that you've been involved in, your theological reflection and your personal reflection. This is a vitally important part of the whole of the field education program. And then you will see that in addition, students must receive a satisfactory rating from their ministry mentor in order to pass this unit. Now from here I'm going to skip through quite quickly through the remainder of the PowerPoint slides that will be included in lecture 1, but I thought I would voice this one over initially, particularly for the benefit of our distant students.